You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome back into the Insight NFL Podcast. Week 13, we have our final show of the week. It's an absolute banger, our primer with our starts of the week to kick things off. Thursday, 27th of November. Secko, glad to be joined here with you tonight. We've got an absolutely ripping show to get through tonight. The Thanksgiving slate tomorrow morning. Cannot wait to get up for that one. It feels like Christmas has come around a month early. How are you feeling as we dive into week 13, kicking off with the Thanksgiving slate?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It is Christmas time for fantasy players. Generally, when Christmas rolls around, it's the end of the season, and most people are out of it, or it's it's championship week in fantasies. This having 3 standalone games on the Friday, and then one more on the Saturday is just a dream come true. So I can't wait. Also, can't wait the fact that it's 2 weeks until playoffs in most leagues. So it's where the rubber hits the road now. You've got to win to get the top seed, number 1 seed, or win to make it in. So these are important weeks, and hopefully our starts this week can again we'll say it 10 from 10, or 8 from 8. But we've had a couple of down weeks, so we've got to really turn it around. And I think the guys we picked today are in a great spot. So can't wait to get into it.
The starts of the week redemption tour begins today. Secko, feeling good. We're absolutely blessed with their Thanksgiving slate, giving us plenty of good options to get through. And just before we get into it, Secko, with your redraft leagues currently, are you kind of tinkering on the edge of getting into playoffs, or you're pretty comfortable at this point of the year in most?
Luckily enough, in most, I'm pretty comfortably in. I think there's only one league, which is one of the Insight $25 leagues, where I'm sort of on the bubble. I think I'm 5th, maybe, with 6 getting into the playoffs in that 12-teamer. Otherwise, Dynasty, I'm in the playoffs for those, and I've got 4 other leagues that I'm in the playoffs. So, so far so good. I'm pretty locked in all of them except for one. How about you?
Yeah, looking like a tough week. I'm one of our Insight leagues. I'm currently 8th at 6 and 6, but there is from 3 to 7, all on 7 to 5, and I should win this week. So it's going to be very, very close as we get into it. If I can sneak that one through, I'll be pretty happy. But the rest, not looking too bad whatsoever. But anything can happen these next couple of weeks. This is where we really need to sharpen our iron and get stuck into it. But without further ado,
we will talk about. Sorry, I'll quickly touch on the Creators League. That's all the Insight guys from all the shows around in a league. It's pretty good for our podcast in the fact that Mav is 11-1. I'm 10-2. You're 8-4. We're 1, 2, and 3. DFAB's in there. He's 7-5 as well. So the Insight boys doing what they do best and showing up the NRL, EPL, NBA, and AFL boys. Showing them how to play the game, which we should be doing. Let's be honest. We should be up there, but I think Mav's on a 6-game win streak, so hopefully he loses and gives up top spot this week.
I would love to see Mav lose, but in that league, he is just as lucky as it comes. That points against, I just can't get over. The next best in points against, or next worst, is 110 points. I think that's you. So you use a 1 and 2. I know 1 and 3 in points against. So yeah, the rub comes around. We'll see how the playoffs pans out. That's the most important league to me. If I win that one, I don't really care about the rest. So we'll wait and see how the next couple of weeks play out. Before we get into our injuries, we've got a massive list at this point of the week. Again, we're kind of flying in the dark a little bit because there is still a couple more practices to go and a couple more questions to be answered with those practices remaining. If you did miss last night's absolute mega trade talk and Captain's Huddle show in the terms of SuperCoach, make sure to check that out below the link. And also, Secko, we will do a little giveaway for tomorrow's Thanksgiving slate. We'll be giving away a standard squeeze 4-in-1. Make sure to be following us on Instagram, the Insight page, Insight NFL Fantasy, yourself at Secko_IFS, and myself at Mullin_FF. All you need to do I know this is a traditional fantasy lens, but it will be a SuperCoach point scoring format for that giveaway. Just got to make sure to be following all 3 of us and predict the top point scorer of tomorrow's games and their points scored, and the closest to it or the exact guess will win a standard squeeze 4-in-1. So that's going to be a nice, cool one to give away. Don't really have to do much either. Just got to drop down a comment, give us a follow. Got to be pretty happy with that. If you had to guess, Secko, I know I'm putting you on the spot. 6 games tomorrow. We've got a ton of stars. I know we both are running the VC on Jamar Chase, so is that probably where we're starting with that?
Yeah, it's probably a launching spot, given that I think I have 5 starters playing in tomorrow's games. Maybe even 6, but there's a lot of options. If you think about probably the 2 Lions boys, even probably wouldn't go Josh Jacobs off an injury, but he's a live option. And then you've got Kansas City. There's Mahomes. There's Rice. You've got Lamb, Pickens, Dak. If you've somehow got him as well, definitely live as well. And then you've got obviously the Bengals and Ravens. I'd probably lead with Jamar because I've got him. But if I had to go elsewhere, and obviously this is a guessing game, and you want to be unique a little bit if you can, to have more chance of winning and getting the highest player. Someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I feel like this is just going to be one of those. It's one of those games, the Thanksgiving games indoor, first game of the slate, in Detroit. Could just be one of those games where he gets off the chain, has sort of 10 for 150 and 2 type thing, or something along those lines. And in this format, that's good for a 60 odd. So I think when you after this podcast and you're jumping into Instagram, maybe just think a little bit outside the box and go someone a bit larger or a bit unique that can go large. Might be the recipe.
I like it. I like Amon-Ra indoors, divisional game. I'm just going to keep banging the drums. I'm with Jamar Chase with you. If I go outside of that, CeeDee Lamb, I think he just, off all those drops in Kansas City, massive spot. That'll probably be the most televised game too for this week in prime time in Dallas between those 2 teams. Yeah, I think he can have a nice big bounce back. But make sure to, as I mentioned, follow us on Instagram. The rules will also be in the video description below, and we will have that up straight after this podcast. So make sure to go check that out as soon as we're done. Injuries. Secko, let's dive straight in. So we've got a few players ruled out already that we hate to hear. Drake London, he's doubtful, trending towards that not likely area of playing. I'll loop them in with the guys that are ruled out or we think that probably aren't going to play. He's at the top of that list, dealing with that PCL, probably still another week away, you'd think. Dalton Kincaid for the Bills, he's ruled out. JJ McCarthy with that concussion, he's also ruled out. Could be a soft benching opportunity. Jaden Reed for the Packers, looking like he is also going to be ruled out, coming back from that long IR stint. Looks to be ready to go for week 14 next week. Brock Wright, tight end for the Lions, is also ruled out. And you could not guess the Lions starting tight end now with him out the door. Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle for the Cowboys, he's out. That's a big loss. T. Higgins as well, dealing with that concussion. And Alvin Kamara with that MCL sprain is also out for this week, with Devin Neal stepping up. Out of these guys, Secko, is there anyone that really sticks out to you that's going to make an impact not being there for these teams this week, or how do you see that moving forward?
Well, Drake London, I've always seen it. So Drake London's been good all year for Bijan Robinson. It sort of sounds counterintuitive, but every the games that he's been out, Bijan's really been quite average. So it does have a flow-on effect, not just for London owners, but owners in both formats of Bijan. Kincaid's been out for a while. McCarthy's a benching. Reed's going to be good to have back. Obviously, those Detroit tight ends. Starting tight end is Anthony Fursker. So if you're playing DFS responsibly, he's a $5,000 option in DFS if you want to save some cash. But obviously T Higgins is the big one. Obviously Joe Burrow back. You'd love him if you owned him and you've been hanging on to him for must be 10 weeks now or so. You'd love to have the full complement there, but I think Yoshavas is obviously the beneficiary of Higgins being out, as well as Mike Gesicki could be a little cheeky little option as they get close to the red zone when Chase is getting probably 7 defenders on him at times.
Love the Mike Gesicki call. I picked him up in a couple of waivers just to see how that plays out. But yeah, he normally does step up in a big way when either Chase or Higgins are out. couple of guys that we have to monitor, again, depending on the practice reports remaining at the back end of this week. Baker Mayfield, dealing with that shoulder sprain. How do you feel about this one to kick things off, Secko? I mean, we've got Teddy Bridgewater in. On the other side for the Cardinals, they're without a couple of their key defensive pieces. The rookies in particular, Walter Nolan and also Will Johnson, looking both to miss. So things are going to be a little bit easier on Teddy Bridgewater if he does field the start. But all in all, massive downgrade for that offense if Baker doesn't play in this one.
It sounds like a pretty genuine 50-50. The good thing is he avoid anything major. So it's one of those things. He's the kind of guy who'll play if there's any chance as well. So they're very much wanting to win that division, and it's sort of not as much of a lock as it probably looked like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So they've been playing pretty ordinary, but he's going to push to play. I honestly think he does play. It would surprise me if he didn't. They don't want to drop this game to Arizona. It would really be hard for them to take. So I feel like he's going to play, and he'll have some sort of strapping or a harness or something, keep that thing in place, and just try and avoid hits. And as you said, that the fence has is taking a bit of a hit. He'll have an easier way, which would be more justifiable for him to play. So we'll see what monitor. Obviously, if you've got, obviously you're going to start Dak, Mahomes, Goff, Lamar, and Burrow ahead of him. If you've got Jordan Love, you may just want to put him in case Baker doesn't go, but you probably could wait on that as well and hope to get a waiver wire. But I think Baker's going to play, and it's a good matchup with the injuries that are there for Arizona.
We've also got Terry McLaurin, who plans to play on Sunday night. Is the latest update on him. He missed 4 weeks from week 3, came back against Kansas City, re-injured that quad injury, and he's been out for the last 4, including the bye. Up against Denver this week, it will be tough for him to get back on the park, but the Commanders need him badly. Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Cardinals, limited practice after that appendectomy surgery that he went through a couple of weeks ago. Wait to see how that one plays out. I think even if he plays Secko, he's still going to start Michael Wilson. I think he's just been too hot lately to sit him.
Yeah, I think you have to. I honestly don't think Marvin Harrison's going to come back and take much away from him. I think Michael Wilson, as weird as it sounds, is the number one in that team now. What he's done the last 2 weeks, Harrison's never done. And that's obviously without Wilson playing a bunch of time and Harrison being the main guy. So, yes, he had Kyler Murray for most of that, and that limits him. But I just think I can't see him turning away from Michael Wilson. So even if Harrison's in, lock and load Michael Wilson. Yeah, he's probably too obvious to be start of the week, even for me. So, yeah, I think you have to play him.
And Drew Petzing, the OC, has come out and said, even with Marvin Harrison coming back, it's going to be hard to not give Michael Wilson what he deserves there. You love to hear it. Brian Thomas Jr., limited at practice today. Once a monitor, could also be a 50-50 there for Jacksonville. I'd probably lean more so on the side of him playing this week. Marion Hampton, another big name here, rookie running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. What do you think on this one, Secko? He's missed a lot of time. They thought originally it was only going to be a few weeks with that ankle, but going on IR and longer than we thought. After the team's bye, how do you feel about Hampton coming back this week for the Chargers?
Well, he actually came out today and said to reporters it was a fractured ankle that was undisclosed. So that explains why it was longer than the 4 weeks and why they were talking like it was going to be after his bye. And it was a bit of a shock at the time. I definitely thought as an owner pretty much everywhere that he'd be back in week 9 or 10 whenever he was eligible. But yeah, I think they've given him the time to heal now. The bye came at a good time to give him an extra week without rushing. So I honestly think he plays. He will be on a limited snap. I don't think they're going to give him 70+% straight away, but he'll use this as the sort of warm-up game. And then against the Raiders, it's a pretty easy warm-up game for him too. And then from next week, you can really, light him up as running back 2 rest of season.
Love it. And we've got a couple of quarterbacks also slated to come back. Aaron Rodgers was dealing with that left hand fracture last week. He's doing everything he can to play against the Bills. And CJ Stroud is off the injury report as well. So keen to see how that one plays out. They've been on a winning streak with Davis Mills, but that defense can just win them a game by themselves. So it will be good to see what CJ Stroud can do hopefully improve Nico Collins. And a couple of guys, Secko coming back from injury, that are all slated to start. Josh Jacobs up against Detroit in the first game of tomorrow morning. Could be on a limited snap count. They've got Emmanuel Wilson there, who's a very capable backup. I've actually running him in SuperCoach. Hopefully I don't regret that, but if they get around the goal line, I think Josh Jacobs is just going to be able to walk one in over Emmanuel Wilson anyhow. Jackson Dart for the Giants, a big return after missing the last couple of weeks with a concussion. Bucky Irving, Secko, he is off the injury report. It's had a great time. If Baker doesn't play, they are going to need more firepower. So Bucky Irving coming back in against the Cardinals with that defense being hindered, like I touched on. How do you feel about Bucky? Do you think he's going to be 100% coming at the gate here after missing all that extended time, or do you think it'll be a slow period to work back in?
It's a hard one to gauge. There's a couple of reasons why I think it's tough to really know. Obviously, the Baker thing weighs into it. With Teddy Bridgewater, it sort of changes the dynamic quite a bit. We've sort of seen Sean Tucker, the emergence of him is sort of, it's not nothing. And then obviously the passing work from Rashad White recently has been really good as well. So my fear is sort of maybe a 60-20-20 split at best for him, which is still good. He's still going to get plenty of work if that's the case, but it may even be a sort of 40-30-30, which just depresses the value a bit, especially with a handpicked or out Baker. But look, I think if you've got him, you can probably start him. But it's always good after these extended layoffs to watch him for a week, see what the workload's like. It's generally limited. They get pulled out at random times, which kills you as a fantasy owner. So if you've got him and you've got other options, it's a no bye week. So you should be able to have someone to plug and play in there and not be too dire. Hopefully you can avoid putting him straight back in, but I understand waiting the 9 weeks or 8 weeks to get him right back into your lineup because he's explosive when he's in.
I really hope he comes at the gate firing. Absolutely love seeing Bucky Irving on the field. Another running back, Ashton Genty, all good with that ankle injury. This one was a bit surprising. He was looking to be dealing with that ankle sprain and probably missing multiple weeks, what I saw from the reports from a couple of sports MDs out there. But he's all good to go. You can start him with confidence. It's him and Brock Bowers for that offense, nobody else. He's going to get some receiving work, so even better in PPR to give that floor. And the biggest name, Secko, that we have coming back, an absolute miracle, being the first quarterback to come back in season that has required surgery on a turf toe. Joey B. Burrow coming up in a divisional game. How do you feel about him coming back? I know there was a press conference about, do you feel like I think it was asked, do you feel like it's needed for you coming back, even though the playoff chances are pretty slim? He's keen to play. He's a baller. He just wants to get out there. They pretty much need to win out to be a chance at the playoffs, and they've got the Ravens twice in the next 3 weeks. How do you feel about Joey B's return?
I feel like he's gonna pepper chase a lot. That's how I feel, and that's why I think we're both so bullish on him. Like that press conference, he said, "I'm a footballer and I'm paid to play football and I'm fit." So I don't get the question, like, why would I not play? Which I love because that's who he is and he's a competitor and it doesn't matter what the record is. He's got a lot to prove. He hates a missed season. He had it 2 years ago as well, and then last year they started off so slow that it was catch up from like week 6 or 7. So he went on an absolute tear from there, but they didn't quite make it. So yeah, I'm pumped to watch it. It's great that it's going to be middle of an afternoon game on Thanksgiving on a Friday. I can just sit back and actually watch the entire game while I'm working. I hope my boss isn't watching. I'll be working hard. Trust me. It's lunch for most of that. But yeah, just pumped to have him back and pumped that the Chase had a week off and they both come back fresh.
Yeah, nice 3-hour lunch for that game. Can't wait. Can't wait to indulge. You have to. It's Thanksgiving. We don't really celebrate it here in Australia, but this year I think we have to. Those games are just way too good. That will do us with the injury report so far up to date. But make sure to stay in tuned with socials in case you are tinkering on a couple of those guys and depending on them for this week. Starts of the week, Secko. The redemption starts now.
Pull over by this hot guy and let me out.
And Secko, I think you've definitely been carrying us so far since bringing this out. So why don't you kick things off for us in week 13?
I'll keep trying to carry a bit. This guy's been just nothing but extraordinary. Like if we're being honest, um, his name you may not know it still, even though he's definitely should be owned and played. It's Jacoby Brissett. Now he's played six. He's had 6 starts since Kyler Murray was benched. We can say benched, I think, confidently now. We've said it enough times. Um, and in that time, he's never been anything but a quarterback one. So that's 6 straight top 12 finishes for a guy who essentially has been bouncing for years. But he's just playing lights out, like just really accurate, good quarterbacking. He's had 250 yards in every game, or 250 plus. And he's averaging 2 touchdowns per game. Like that's a floor at the moment for him. That is just good for 20 plus fantasy points in most leagues. And anything on top of that is a bonus. He's got a little sneaky rush upside as well, 20 plus yards on the ground or a touchdown in 5 of his 6 games as well. And finally, Tampa Bay has given up 270 and 2 touchdowns in each of their last 3 games. So marry those things together, I think you can expect Jacoby Brissett, with Harrison back or without, to have between 260 and 280 and 2 or 3 touchdowns. Strong start. I think, good for 20 plus fantasy points. So if you've got Jacoby and you're tossing up between some guys in that sort of bottom end QB1 range, you can start him with a fair bit of confidence.
Brissett's a great one this week. If you are playing in one quarterback leagues, every chance he's out there in waivers. I love Jaden's comment here. He beat me to it. This was my mind on it too. We'll start for the Cardinals next year, I reckon. I think that's a very, very good chance too, the way he's playing. They could draft someone or bring someone in that needs a bit of time to develop, but the way Brissett has been, you absolutely love to see it from him. Another strong start, Secko. I will go this week as my quarterback start of the week. Justin Herbert, coming off the bye, up against the Raiders in a divisional matchup and at home. Herbert was very disappointing the last time we saw him up against Jacksonville. Only threw for 80 yards, threw an intercept, and didn't really give us anything more besides that. Just over 3 points in fantasy scoring on the week, which absolutely would have nuked you. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't give you at least 20 this week. Again, coming off the bye, and there is that good chance that Hampton does come back. Even if he doesn't, he's got plenty of capable pass catchers around him. The Raiders' defense is in shambles. The Raiders' organization as a whole is in shambles. I think Herbert and the Chargers will just absolutely pick their teeth with the Raiders. Lad McConkey, Aronde Gadsden, QJ, and Keenan Allen. Love all these guys to fire for Herbert, and he'll be the main beneficiary of that. So looking for the bounce back spot with him this week.
Love it. Love it. My running back start of the week is another guy who's not always thought about as an elite option in a bit of a similar way as Brissett. It's Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Since the bye, which was in week 8, his RB finishes have been RB12, RB13, RB11, and RB7. That's about as locked and loaded as a low-end RB1 as you'd possibly want. And he's doing it consistently. He's averaging 21 opportunities per game, 95 all-purpose yards, and a touchdown over those 4 games. That's phenomenal. Again, it's a sort of baseline play. I just don't think it's going to get too far. Bajor Tootin was a bit of a hotness for a while, but that was in that stretch as well where Etienne was still putting up numbers, and now it seems after last week it's reverted straight back to Etienne's backfield without too much of an issue. And they get Tennessee, which is probably the biggest plus of all. And they just gave up 6.2 yards per carry to probably the most inefficient running back room in the league, the Seahawks, last week, 6.2 yards per carry to Walker and Charbonnet, who have been notoriously inefficient on the ground. They've done it a bunch of times this year. Tennessee's very exploitable. I think Jacksonville's going to have a pretty easy game of it. They're a lot better than they've appeared. They're good on defense. They have a lot of chance to run the ball, I think, late in the game, and that's Etienne can always break as well as be handy in the passing game. So Travis Etienne, definitely start him this week.
just about a touchdown favourite too. The Jags are in this one. You'd be surprised if their team doesn't score in this. My running back, and it hurts picking a player from the New York Jets, but if there is one, there is only one. It is Breece Hall as my running back start of the week up against Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta is just a train wreck. Lately, they're allowing 23 fantasy points on average to opposing running backs. That's 27th in the league so far. They've been absolutely leaking points. The biggest, way that I wanted to see Breece Hall improve with Tyrod Taylor coming in the center was in that receiving game. He had 4 for 75 last week through the air. Only gave you 16 for 44 up against Baltimore, but they were kind of behind in that game. They couldn't really do too much on the ground. I think there's a good chance the Jets could win this week up against Atlanta and Kirk Cousins. He should get 20-plus opportunities, at least 3 or 4 catches in this one. A very good chance to score. He's so explosive. We know how good Breece Hall is. He's just been super hindered by this New York Jets team for the whole year. I think it's a massive bounce-back spot for him. And I won't make it a touchdown guarantee, but I'd be surprised also if he doesn't get there in this game. Purely just on volume alone, he's going to have that many cracks at it. Yeah, he should go big this week.
I think he'd be stiff not to get in the end zone. This could be a game which could be Tyrod Taylor. It's hard to know sort of what you're going to get, but this could be a sneaky, high-scoring game. One of those ones you don't expect to be on red zone for the majority, and it goes the latest because it's sort of 37 to 33 type thing. 100%. I think Breece can score. He's the best player in that team by a long way. So love that shout. My wide receiver this week is Khalil Shakir of the Buffalo Bills. Now, this guy's not sexy. He's not someone that you're sort of, you're rushing to chuck into your lineup. But in PPR, I think he's a great play. And the reason why, outside of one really weird outlier game, which was against Tampa Bay a few weeks ago, where he had 1 catch for -3 yards, in 4 of his last 5, outside of that, he's averaging almost 9 targets, 7 catches, 75 yards in those games. Now, that's like, again, 7 for 75, 14.5 PPR points. And then if you can sneak into the end zone, he's over 20, and it's an absolute smash start. So, obviously, based on that, I think he's a great play. Steelers are the opponents this week for the Bills. They've given up 100-plus yards or a touchdown to the number 1 pass catcher of the other team in every game this year, except when they played Cleveland. And that was Dylan Gabriel. Harold Fannin had 62 yards, I think was the top. But that's Cleveland, who are pretty anemic. Every other team Steelers have played, someone's got off the best pass catcher of the other team has got off the chain. So I think Khalil Shakir gives you a really good floor, but also I think he's a very good chance to have 8+ catches, 80, 90+ yards, and a chance of scoring. So you got that combination. I think you put him in every day of the week.
With Kincaid out, the Bills need Shakir so badly, and this game for them is a must-win in the AFC. Love this one. I really do hope the Bills can pull out a win, and I wouldn't be too worried whatsoever with the new addition of Brandon Cooks coming in. Brandon Bean, you've done it again. Wide receiver start of the week. Xavier Worthy up against the Dallas Cowboys. And this one is gross being a Bills fan. Xavier Worthy has been horrid so far this year. He's currently the wide receiver 57 in half points PPR. But if there is ever a week to start Xavier Worthy, it's up against the worst defense in all of NFL to opposing wide receivers. Dallas are allowing 34.3 fantasy points per game in this regard. Rashee Rice is definitely going to cook in this game as well, but I think with Worthy, there's every chance that he gets a long bomb touchdown in this game. It's going to be the most watched game of the week in a dome in Dallas. Dallas are going to be able to keep up the pace with this one. Dallas, their defense against the run has actually improved significantly since they've added Quinn and Williams. So I think Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, those guys will struggle like they normally do, and Worthy will need to pick up the slack in this one. I hope that Tyquan Thornton isn't the one that catches a long bomb touchdown. It should go to Worthy. He is primed for a big game in this one.
I love it. I don't want to give out too many guarantees here, but I think you're on the same page. I think this guy's a very good chance of getting a long one. He's due. He's been average to say the least, but Dallas is the perfect tonic for any receiver to get back in the win column. All right, tight ends. Tight end start of the week. I'm going back to my boy. If you listened a couple of weeks ago, I had a long spiel about this bloke and why I think he's a great start. It's Theo Johnson of the New York Giants. Look, the New York Giants is a bit gross in general, but Theo Johnson is clearly their most reliable and competent option. And there's a few reasons why. He's been low key great the last month. It's 75 yards or a touchdown in 3 of his last 4. So he's giving you really good consistent tight end performances almost every week. A lot of those without Jackson Dart. Now Jackson Dart is back, and he may be forced to throw the ball a bit more with the concussions. I think Kafka's going to potentially tell him to not look, or they're not going to call as many design plays first of all, design run plays, but maybe just look to get the ball out quicker, avoid some collisions, and do the smart thing. And Theo Johnson is the best option in that passing offense for a quick throw and a quick first read play. So I think he's a great play for that. Finally, they're playing New England. New England's been great for tight ends, and they've allowed 4+ catches to tight ends in each of the last 6 games, and that is to players like Mike Gesicki, Mason Taylor, Kate Otten, who had 9 for 82, Kyle Pitts, your boy, Harold Fannin, and Gunnar Helm. Like we're talking about, I think Theo's better than all of those 6 guys personally, and all those guys got 4+. All those guys got 40+ yards. It's just, I think it's just a great play with Dart back. I think he's going to be looking. Slayton looks like he's going to be out again potentially as well. There's just a lot of targets available. So let's hope he can get on the end of a few and potentially one in the painted area against the Patriots.
It pains me to say this. I actually have to start Kyle Pitts in a league this week, and I would much rather start Theo Johnson. If I had the option, I'd much rather start Theo Johnson. Someone's already picked him up off waivers.
Bring your waivers up, mate. We'll find you someone to start over Kyle Pitts. I'm sure Anthony Fursker of the Detroit Lions is available on your waivers.
Look, there probably is options, but he's team captain. He's there for the vibes. He's there at this point. I love Theo Johnson there with Dart back under center. My tight end, and I will run through this super quickly because it is just gross thinking of this tight end start of the week. Dallas Goedert for the Philadelphia Eagles has been super horrid the last couple of weeks. Up against Detroit, he scored 4.4 points. Dallas, 4 points. But up against Chicago in this one, and Chicago, they do have their star corner, Jalen Johnson, back from injury. Reports were saying he was ready to go last week, but because of the short turnaround, they kind of held him out. He'll be fully healthy. He'll be on A.J. Brown. That's going to be a good matchup. Devonta Smith has been banged up this week, dealing with a shoulder and chest injury. So in turn, I'm forecasting a little bit that Dallas Goedert will get a lot more work in this game up against the Bears. Be good clash this game. I think they're both 8-3 on the year. Very surprised if Chicago does win this one, but in Philadelphia, where it's nice and cold, I think that middle area of the field where Goedert works is going to look very healthy for Jalen Hurts this week. So he'll be my start of the week in a bounce back spot. Chicago also 22nd in points allowed to tight ends with just under 12 fantasy points per game. Dallas Goedert, here we go.
I love it. Absolutely love that. He's one of those guys who pops up out of nowhere, a bit like a Hunter Henry, where he can have 2 touchdowns at any given moment, and it's the right matchup. My DST start of the week is a bit of a layup. Thought I'd go for an easy one. I picked him up off waivers in a couple of leagues. It's the Los Angeles Chargers taking on Geno Smith and the Raiders. The week off, coming off the bye, is a perfect spot for them. And Geno Smith is frankly pretty trash at quarterbacking. Genty's fine to play, but I still think there's a chance he's a little bit limited. Bowers may get off the chain a bit, I think, this week, but he's about the only one with your Trey Tuckers and Jack Beshes of the world doing their damage, and Tyler Lockett. There's not a lot of weapons there. I think they can easily shut down. So I feel like this is the thing the Raiders don't score. So with DSTs is you do get points for limiting their scoring, and that's that point differential staggers or drops off pretty quickly as they score more points. These guys are in that, and the implied point total is 2 touchdowns or around that mark. That's good for points. They give up sacks. Gino's good for a pick every week. Hopefully a pick 6. They fumble. They're sort of the offense that keeps on giving to DST. So if you can get the Chargers still, if they're still available on waivers, go have a look while you're watching us and pick them up now and start them as probably one of the top 3 or 4 DSTs on the week.
For my defense, start of the week, I'm going to take the second best layup. I thought the Seahawks up against Max Brosma for the Vikings in Max Brosma's first start. Seahawks are at home in Seattle. They're going to be hungry during Thanksgiving weekend. I feel bad for Brosma, his first start coming up against this defense. Justin Jefferson, I hope he has a better game than what JJ McCarthy's performed, but I'm not too confident up against the Seahawks in this one. So Max Brosma, unfortunately, your first start has to come up against these guys. I think they are going to absolutely walk through the Vikings this week. That will wrap things up for our starts of the week for week 13. Secko, we've got a massive slate of games to get through. We've got no teams on bye. Let's get into the game preview for week 13.
Let's preview the game for the week ahead. It's time for game talk.
This Thanksgiving slate, the more I look at it, it could be all time. Honestly, to kick things off tomorrow morning at 4 or 5 a.m., depending where you are here in Australia, the Packers heading to Detroit to take on the Lions in a divisional matchup. Lions are a field goal favorite, 48-point total. Jared Goff at home. We know how good he is in a dome. Jamo, Amon-Ra, you're going to start both of those guys, especially with Laporta out. Jahmyr Gibbs, no question. He had an absolute monster week last week. David Montgomery, second. That's probably the only real question mark here for the Lions on this side of the ball. Are you looking to sit him this week, or do you think he might give some production in week 13?
And I think he's a sit. I just can't. He just hasn't done it enough. Gibbs has just taken that role. I think he's just wrestled it away from him and done it through just sheer brilliance. And now Dan Campbell's calling the plays. I think he's like, let's just get our best players out there. And Monty's done an amazing job filling a role for years now. But I think it's just time to just give the keys full time to Gibbs, which is great as a Gibbs owner. And if you've got him, because it just means he gets more of that opportunity to have that big play. But yeah, the ones you said are great starts. I think Monty's the only real guy you'd be considering who you'd want to sit this week, especially against the Packers D, that are better against the pure run than they would be against Gibbs' ability to get it out of the backfield.
Second, I actually forgot to mention in the news and injuries, Frank Ragnow, centre for the Lions, has come out of retirement. Did you catch that news this morning? It was that came out. This was the deadline for him to return after retiring. I'm pretty sure that was legit. I believe it was Schefter that I saw that from this morning. I will just double check to make sure I'm not telling porkies.
No, you're right. I'm just looking at it now. Yeah, wow. Yeah. He's going to come straight back in. Okay,
reinstated, which is a massive in. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go, because apparently why he retired was he was just too banged up, couldn't deal with it. But I mean, if he's entering at week 13, he'd be pretty happy. He hasn't had to deal with all the long slog for the most of the season. So keen to see how that one plays out. For the Packers, Josh Jacobs, you have to start him. I think if you've got him in your leagues, depending where you would have drafted him at, you're going to have to bring him in. Christian Watson, I think, is probably going to be the best receiver on the Packers side of the ball this week. Matthew Golden dealing with injuries. I'm not too sure if he's been ruled out. We didn't have that on our he's questionable, so that's a 50-50 chance with Golden. Even still, I don't think it'll matter. Watson has just taken over. Jaden Reed's been ruled out. We know that. Romeo Dobbs, Secko, how do you feel about him? And in turn, Jordan Love, because he's going to be the guy carrying the shit for that team.
Yeah, look, Dobbs is the kind of guy who you sort of hate to start, but he has these games. So it's one of those weird ones where it's very hard to line up. I think in a pinch you can start him, but again, no buys this week. You should be able to find 3 or 4 receivers you like better than Dobbs. But no problem starting him. It should be a fairly high-scoring game. Now, Jordan Love's just been a little bit It's hard to explain if you haven't been sort of paying close attention. He's been pretty average. He's been heavily dominant through the run game. Last week, especially, 28 carries for Wilson, but that was against McCarthy. They didn't have to do anything against the Vikings and did it pretty comfortably. But he sort of hasn't had a big game for a long time. It's very hard to trust. Giants the week before, who were very exploitable defense. He had 2 touchdowns, but only 174 yards. So it's sort of just I'd almost prefer to sit him if I could. If I had anyone who was decently startable, I'd probably consider sitting him for the week.
I'm there with you there. And we could just move on to the next game after that is all done. Chiefs and Cowboys, this is going to be the one that I'm going to be absolutely glued to. Biggest total of the week, 52.5 in Dallas. The Chiefs are a field goal favorite. Actually don't mind Cowboys to cover in this one. I know we were talking about it briefly. I think they could just win straight up. But it will be hard because the Cowboys defense against the pass is horrid, and that is where Mahomes is going to shine. Big bounce back. He looked pretty poor last week against the Colts. Rashid Rice, start him. Xavier Worthy might start of the week, no doubt. Travis Kelce in prime time, I think he's also worth a start. Probably the running backs is the only one that I'm questioning. Secko. We've got Pacheco back on deck for the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt's been good. He had 30 carries last week. I'm not too sure how he follows up with that this week. If they do get to the goal line, they normally just give it to Hunt. But the Cowboys' run defense has gotten better. So Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, he's starting or sitting them this week.
It's a hard start, and I'm glad you mentioned the 30 rush situation last week. I was going to mention it, but it's a short week. He's far from a young, explosive back, Hunt, and I think with Pacheco back in, I feel like it's going to be a bit more of a split. And it just doesn't. It seems like it's a passing game. It seems like it's going to be a lot through the air, partly because they need to. I think Dallas will keep up and keep it competitive, but also I just think that's the way you beat Dallas the easiest. So yeah, it'll be Hunt, Pacheco, and a bit of Brashard Smith, a bit of Rice out of the backfield as well. It's just there's not probably enough of the, let's say, 20 maximum carries to go around probably to make Hunt. He may get a goal line touchdown. He may be startable. I don't think Pacheco's startable in the slightest, personally. So I think if you're in a pinch and you haven't got anyone great to cover for Hunt, he is someone you could start. But I wouldn't want to be actively wanting to cram him into my lineup. I'd rather sit and watch and hope I have Rice or Mahomes or Kelsey.
And I think it's a similar story for the Cowboys side of the ball too in this one, Secko. You're starting Dak no matter what. CD, Pickens, Jake Ferg. We don't mind him this week also, but the running back, Javonte Williams, Chiefs have been super stout up against the run this year. I think they're top 5 in the year against running backs in terms of allowing fantasy points. Tyler Guyton's out as well, right tackle for the Cowboys. Same thing. Are you looking to start Javonte this week, or do you think there's better options elsewhere?
Like he's been really good all year for us. Again, like we saw just Jonathan Taylor last week. He only had 16.58, just over 3.5 per carry, and that's probably one of the most explosive, best running backs in the game. Whereas Javonte is coming off that sort of efficiency on the ground already over the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's getting lots of volume, which is great. We love seeing volume, but he's not really doing a lot with it. So I feel in this game, again, they're probably going to be throwing the ball more than they would traditionally. I'm not expecting Williams to have 20 plus carries, and on 15 carries, I think the most you can probably expect is 60 yards. And if he gets in the end zone, you're happy. He's doing nothing in the passing game either. So it's sort of it's a tough start. In a similar situation as Hunt, I'd much prefer obviously Javonte than Hunt, but I just don't see there's going to be a massive upside game coming out of Javonte in this one, unfortunately for owners.
The last game of the Thanksgiving slate, Bengals heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are a touchdown favorite in this one. I actually think I like the Bengals to cover with Joey B back on deck. It's always a close game, this divisional matchup. 51.5 total points, so just a point under the Cowboys and Chiefs game. Bengals, Joe Burrow, you start him back on deck. He's missed 10 odd weeks of the year. you probably start him with confidence, I'd say. He's probably going to throw for at least 2 touchdowns, we think. Jamar Chase, no doubt. Andre Yoshivas, I think he's a very good start with T. Higgins. Mullin Secko, you mentioned as well when we went through the injuries, he's a nice little start if you're caught in a pinch. Chase Brown, he's been super efficient these last few weeks, and with Joey B back on deck, not wanting to get hit at the line, I'm sure he's going to be looking for those quick dump-offs as well. So all in all, pretty easy for the Bengals. For the Ravens, Secko, Lamar hasn't been performing the way that we've wanted him to. Very clear he's not himself, dealing with those injuries. Hamstring, knee, and also a toe, I think was what I saw he's been dealing with lately. Derrick Henry is going to absolutely dominate in this game. Every chance he gets 2 touchdowns. We like the tight ends, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Bengals are the worst defense against tight ends and could be of all time after this year, the way they're trending. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. That's probably where we need to look to in terms of question marks on this game, Secko. Flowers hasn't scored a touchdown in any game against the Bengals in his career. How do you think he'll go this week, week 13?
It's so hard. I'll call myself fortunate. I've never ever had Zay Flowers in any fantasy league in his entire career. Um, so I count myself very fortunate for that. He's an amazing player, but God, he sucks at fantasy, and it's just his inability to have any impact. He hasn't had a touchdown. Not only has he not had a touchdown against the Bengals in his career, he hasn't had a touchdown since week 1 on this season. Like that's brutal. He hasn't had over 100 yards or a touchdown in any game since week 1. So if you want a guy who's probably going to give you 11, 12 PPR fantasy points, great. Like he's a great start, but the upside just does not seem to exist. And in a matchup where we think that one or both of the tight ends is probably going to have a big game, Rashad Bateman is a really good thing to bring up because it's not necessarily him; it's what he does for the structure. Um, So it's probably it's a positive for Flowers if Bateman's back. It does straighten him up a little bit. It takes away that need to be downfield. So get more catches in a pure PPR rather than 5, 3, and 4 the last 3 weeks. Before they had 7, 6, 5, 7. So you might get more catches. You hopefully will get more yards. He's able to break one, but I just don't love the start, and I haven't for like best part of 3 years. So I wouldn't start Flowers, yeah, with any love or confidence. I'd start him with a very guaranteed, points in the bank of between 11 and 13, and that's about it.
It's a hard start, Flowers. I've only got him in 1 league. I'm very similar to you. Have not had him in any leagues for the last 3 years, but I've got him now in a redraft, and I need him to go big for me this week. So I don't know. I'm not too confident. We've got a Black Friday game over in the States. Nice little Saturday morning one for us here in Australia. The Bears taking on the Eagles in Philadelphia. Eagles touchdown favorite, 44-point total. I think the Eagles absolutely run through the Bears in this one. I think it's a big Barkley game coming off a disappointing few weeks. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. How do you feel about the pass catches in this one up against the Bears? I know I mentioned Jalen Johnson's finally back, the start corner there. It's hard to fade, I guess the wide receivers just with how talented they are. But yeah, how do you feel about them in week 13?
I feel like one of them is going to do really well. It's has that feel about it where one of them has probably maybe 2 touchdowns, 100 plus, and the other one is sort of in that sort of 6 catches for 60 yards sort of range. I think they both go okay, but it's hard to line up who it's going to be. Devontae Smith's been carrying a few things. He still looks really good on the field, though. I still think he looks like the better wide receiver when you're watching the games. Just the way he moves out there and gets open. It's all on Hurts. It's all on game plan. I think you're right. Saquon Barkley's going to have a lot of work in this game, and hopefully, he can run it in from the 10 or the 20 because when they get any closer, it gets taken out of his hands. It's a bit like Varsity Blues. If you've ever seen that, Paul Wendell just kept getting pulled, inside the 10 by Coach Kilmer. It still seems like that for Saquon. He just never gets a look in because Hurts they'll have you do 4 tush pushes from the 3 to get it done, which sucks. But yeah, I think you're right. Start them all. Got out start of the week as well for you, and obviously Hurts you starting because of that rushing upside.
Varsity Blues, can't say I've indulged. I've absolutely no idea
Do
what.
it. Do what you
Okay.
do it.
I'll have a look.
Movie, do it.
I'll have a look for sure. For the Chicago Bears, Secko, it's going to be a tough one. That Eagles defense coming off a loss when they were on the road to Dallas last week. I think they're going to kill Caleb Williams. I'd be looking elsewhere if I could. I would not want to be starting Caleb Williams up against that Eagles defense away from home. The running backs, DeAndre Swift, Coleman Ongai, also tough starts this week. If you've got better options elsewhere, definitely look at that. And also the wide receivers, Secko. I mean, it's all up in the air. Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, you've got to sprinkle him in. I do love Colson Loveland, but I don't love him this week. But how do you see it going for the Bears side of the ball?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've got Roma Dunze in a couple of leagues. I'm benching him. I'm starting Cortland Sutton. I think I'm starting Christian Watson over him in one league. I just don't. Yeah, it gives me the creeps. I think they're going to get. We haven't spoken about it. I'm full agreement. I think there's a chance they might even get shut out. Like it's that kind of level. I think they've been running hot. The Bears on the road on a pure standalone. They haven't had many standalone games. I can't remember watching them in a prime time at all. Maybe start of the season. I feel like this is the kind of game where they just get super exposed. And I think if you've got anyone, maybe Loveland, if you've been having to stream, is startable, but I wouldn't love it. Outside that, I wouldn't start Rome, Moore, or Burden, or obviously Williams. And the running backs, I just don't think they're in a split now. Ben Johnson's come out and said hot hand already. So you literally could have the guy who starts and gets 6 carries for the game for 20 yards, and you don't see him again. So I think just avoid it all and just watch the game on the Saturday morning instead.
It'll be nice to watch a Saturday morning game, that's for sure. Moving on to the early Monday morning slate here in Australia. Cardinals taking on the Bucks. Bucks are just under a field goal favorite, 43-point total. Not too sure if the bookies think that Baker's going to play. Looking at that line, I mean, the Cardinals have been absolutely horrid this year. They've been giving games away, but on that side of the ball, you're starting Jacoby, your start of the week. Michael Wilson, you're starting him. Trey McBride, absolutely no matter what. Trey Benson could be an in, and a guy that I've completely forgot to mention in our injury report. How do you feel about him this week, Secko? Do you think he plays? And if so, do you think he's limited in his first game back?
It's weird. I mean, I know it's only Thursday, or it's only Wednesday in the States, so you don't usually hear much. But I feel like I own him in a couple of spots, and I'd love to get him back as soon as possible. So I'm more keenly cued in than most on the Benson situation. I haven't heard anything. It's very much up in the air. So I think I have to wait till probably Friday to get any indication on whether he plays. I think if he plays, he just gets full. He just gets full allotment. Obviously, DiMercato is a chance of playing, but he's still not 100%. Bam Knight's not 100%. Michael Carter's useless. I just think, and Jacoby obviously makes that whole offensive setup better. So I really think if he comes back in, he gets all the work. Same as sort of Bucky and Hampton in that he'll be a bit of a ramp up game. So he's fully fit to go the week after in a better matchup. But yeah, it's 50-50 whether he plays. If you're banking on him and you've got someone playing tomorrow morning, you may want to start them because there's every chance he doesn't get up.
And for the Bucks, you mentioned Bucky. If he is starting, I think I'm going to play him no matter what. I need to in a couple of leagues. They're going to need him a lot if Baker doesn't play. How do you feel about Igbokwe this week, Secko, if it is Bridgewater under center? And to add on along with that, say Flowers or Igbokwe if Bridgewater is the starter.
The answer is Igbokwe. Only because the question was say Flowers. You'll never get me to say Flowers, by the way. Just I don't care who you say. Yeah, I mean, no, but in all honesty, again, one of them can have, more than 15 fantasy points. The other one can't. So if you want to have a floor and you've got stars everywhere, you probably would start Flowers. But look, thinking about Igbokwe, he was targeted well. Obviously, T. Bridgewater wasn't preparing for the game. When they come in cold, it's very hard to judge or to gauge the quarterback. You want to see them with a week of practice and everything that goes into that. So it's one of those games. the NFL is one of those weird games where you don't really know until you follow it closely how much a week of practice actually matters. So I think, given they still haven't got Goldman on full snaps, still only Tez Johnson and Kate Otten there, and a bit of Sterling Shepard, I think Ibuka could be the kind of guy who gets 10 targets from Teddy, 6 of them are catchable, he catches the 6 and he has 90 yards. That's the kind of expectation I have in this matchup at home. Again, it's like I've said a couple of times last week, and they both proved to be pretty well. East Coast going west to play, they find it challenging. Same applies for West Coast going east. Often, Arizona's virtually West Coast, and they're going across to Tampa. Um, it often goes heavily in the home team's favor with those cross country trips. So um, it's just one of those things to obviously watch. But I think Ibuka's going to be fine. If you've got him, you start him, unless you've got 3 top 15 options.
Falcons taking on the Jets in New York up next. Falcons are just under a field goal favorite and just under 40 points. Not a lot to touch on in this one. Secko, I mean, for the Jets side of the ball, Brees Hall, my start of the week. John Mechie, how do you feel about him? I've recently just traded for him, actually, just before this stream kicked off. I think it was a 2028 third-round pick for Mechie and Chris Rodriguez. So I'm going deep. I'm a contender in that league. All I have is 2028 picks left. I've won a couple of times in a row. I just keep digging. I just keep looking forward. But I actually don't mind Mechie for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I wish I still had the trade deadline in the league that I didn't get him. I got him in a couple of spots. So I think quite high. I've always thought highly of John Mechie. If you don't know his sort of story, he was the wide receiver 2 behind Devonta Smith in at Alabama when they won the national championship, and then he was the number 1 there when they made it to the championship game the year after. He was a early second round pick, highly credentialed, and then he got leukemia and missed a year and a half of football. And the Texans ran out of. They got Tank Dell came through, and they sort of ran out of patience, and he's bounced around. But he's actually landed in a spot where he gets opportunity, and that's all he really needed to do to be a star. I've always thought that. I actually had him in a bunch of dynasties, and they had to cut him as hot things come up because he was. I think might have been at the Eagles earlier this year, but back-to-back games, he had touchdowns, back-to-back 7+ target games. Tyrod Taylor's a massive plus for him. So I think as a dynasty stash, you probably shouldn't have to start him this week again with no buys, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if you are starting him in weeks 15, 16, or 17, purely because he's playing well enough to justify being in ahead of Roma Dunze in a bad matchup or guys of that ilk, which sounds mental to say, but every chance Mechie is a startable guy going forward. But other than that, Brees is good. Jets suck. Kirk Cousins and Tyrod Taylor played their first game against each other in 2015. That's probably telling you what you need to know about this game.
Secko, John Mechie or Zay Flowers this week if you had to pick?
John Mechie. Come on, that's easy.
That's too easy. I had to throw it out there. I had to just double check.
If you had said Adonai Mitchell or Zay Flowers, it's a bit tougher, but it's AD Mitchell.
There you go. Absolute Zay Flowers hater there. Yeah, I'm kind of on board. For the Falcons, Bijan, that's kind of it, really. Cole Pitts, if you're a massive favourite and you just want to do it for the vibes, throw him in there. But no, we'll move on. Just Bijan for the Falcons in that game. It's not going to be looking too good for fantasy this week, but we could be wrong. I hope so. A divisional matchup coming up. Texans heading to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Colts just over a field goal favorite, 44.5 total points. For the Texans, CJ Stroud back on deck. Colts defense has been a little bit leaky lately. I'd love to see CJ Stroud support Nico Collins to have a monster week. He's going to have Sauce Gardner on him, might be a little bit tougher. Woody Marks, I think you can start him this week. He's been getting the lion's share of the volume for the last couple of weeks. Colts, I think they're without DeForest Buckner. He was placed on IR. I think he's still out for the next week or two. Start him. Besides that, on the Texans, Dalton Schultz, Secko, that's pretty much it. I know they've got Jaden Higgins and Christian Kirk. How do you feel about either of those wide receivers behind Nico?
It's hard to line up I mean, Kirk had a good game last week, so yeah, and he hasn't really done much of that. It was obviously Davis Mills, so the equation changes a little bit there as well. With Stroud on track to play this week, so it's sort of like it's hard. They've had some weird games. They had that shootout against Jacksonville when they came back from, I think it was almost 4 scores down at one point in that game, and that was sort of a lot of production there. But last week 5 catches, a touchdown, 54 yards for Kirk, 9 targets, 38 yards and a touchdown for Higgins. I think Higgins is a speculative start. You wouldn't want to be to sort of flex at best. But I feel like you said it right. The Colts have been exploitable recently. Um, it's just a matter of how does Stroud go? Divisional game. There's a lot of sort of question marks. I'd probably only be comfortable starting Collins, and Marks is a great play, and obviously Dalton Schultz, but he did all his good working with Davis Mills as well. So again, there's uncertainty with Stroud coming back, which sounds silly because he's the starter. You'd almost wish that Davis Mills was in there again because you know what you're sort of going to get based on the last 3 weeks, which they've
And
won
for the
every game,
Colts,
by the way.
they have. They're 3 in a row, so it'd be interesting to see. I think they can win this
Gonna
game
lose.
because of the Texans defense. I think they're going to be a world of hurt for. It's going to be a world of hurt for Danny Dimes in this one. We saw what the Texans did to the Bills. I know that was in Houston last week. They're in Indianapolis this week in a dome in Danny Dimes's playhouse, but I just don't think it's going to matter. I think that Texans defense is too legit. The corners for there, Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, Michael Pittman. I'd be looking to sit him if you can. It's going to be tough. I don't want to go too crazy, but I'd probably even start Mechie over Pittman. That might be very bold, but I just think the Texans are going to shut down the Colts in this one, and Danny Dimes is going to have a very, very bad day. Texans have been great defense all around, but JT, you're going to start him no matter what. It is tough matchup for him, tough stretch run, but you're absolutely dreaming if you're looking to sit JT. Tyler Warren, I don't mind him in this matchup up against the Texans. That's where they have been exploitable, but the Colts, Secko, how are you feeling about Danny Dimes and Michael Pittman? Is that a little bit too hot for you this week?
No, not at all. It's I think if you can look elsewhere, I sort of put Pittman and Pierce in the same sort of frame as the Bears guys. Pittman's very similar to a Dunze, and obviously Pierce is with the other guys. They're all guys you'd like to avoid if you can. So depends on what you've got. Back on JT, I know it sounds like a scary matchup. They've been great. They gave up 17 for 116 and a touchdown to James Cook last week. The Texans did. And he had one decent run. Without that, he's still 4.5 a carry. So JT will be fine. And Tyler Warren will be fine. But I probably would look to try and start someone other than Michael Pittman this week. But it's easier said than done because he's been great all year, and he may be your second or third best option. You sort of have to go with clearly above some other scrubs like, say, Flowers.
We have another divisional game coming up. And before we get into it, guys, I forgot to mention at the start of the show, we'll be answering all start or sit questions that you may have. So drop them in the comments. We'll be able to get to them at the back end after we finish going through all the games for this week. Jags taking on the Titans in Tennessee. Secko, Jags are just under a touchdown favorite, 41.5 total points. Not a lot to really go through on this one. Travis Etienne, your start of the week. You're starting him. Trevor Lawrence has been gross, but up against the Titans, you probably can start him in this one. Brian Thomas Jr., if he plays, how are you feeling about him this week, along with the other wide receivers for the Jags?
It's sort of similar to Bucky and Hampton. It's hard. First game back, I feel it's going to be limited snaps. We also have to remember they were pretty rubbish. Well, he was pretty rubbish before he got injured as well. Like he was categorically probably the biggest bust of the year in fantasy before he got injured, and sort of the injuries maybe covered that up a little bit on how bad that actually was. I wouldn't be starting him. You've got through the last few weeks without him. You've got options there. There hasn't been massive injuries in the wide receiver core across the league, and there's no buys, so you should be able to get by without starting him. But Etienne's the start. Outside of that, Brenton Strange, and because Thomas is back, it probably just dampens Washington and Myers more than helping Thomas that much, or or Lawrence can be anything. Lawrence had 153 and 1 2 weeks ago, and he had 256 and 3 last week. So he can be literally anything. Again, one of those games you probably want to avoid as much as you can on both sides. Just try and get around it rather than having to play guys.
Yeah, and for the Titans, I think really only Cam Ward, you can throw him in there if you need to in a super flex. He's giving you some nice rushing production, and Chimere DK in turn. That's pretty much all it for the Titans that you can really start if you have to. Moving on, Secko and your Rams heading to Carolina, taking on the Panthers. 10.5-point favorites. Sure, they don't lose this one. Just under 45 total points. For the Rams, you start them all. Stafford's on an absolute hitter. Devontae Adams scoring touchdowns for fun. Kyron Williams is probably going to walk into the end zone in this game. And Puka as well. No matter what, you're not sitting him. For the Panthers, Ted McMillan, you probably can. You think that they're going to be behind a lot in this game. Bryce Young, very, very tough start up against that Rams defense. I would not be looking to start him whatsoever. I think in our Creators League, I do have Bryce Young. Probably going to start a bench guy over him if I can. Maybe Keishon Booty trying to take that upside. I think I'd rather start him than Bryce Young in this game. I think he's going to have a very, very tough game up against your Rams.
Yeah, it's hard to start any Panthers with any confidence. That includes Dowdle. After what happened last week, he had 6 carries in that game. He cracked the shits at Canellis. I feel like Canellis is the kind of guy who will bench him, or not bench him, but hold him back from snaps to sort of prove a point, because he can be a bit that way. He seems a little bit stubborn and a bit old school. So I really wouldn't want to start Dowdle. It sounds really crazy. He's been a great pickup for everyone who's got him, and a couple of weeks ago, everyone thought he was a sort of RB1 type. But Chuba Hubbard was mixed in. I feel like it's going to happen again. It's already a tough matchup. They do play better at home, but this is another one where you probably want to avoid everyone, but T-Mac if you can do it.
Moving on, we'll jump straight along. And another, in terms of fantasy production, it's going to be a gross one. 49ers heading over to Cleveland and take on the Browns. It's going to be cold over there. Coming off a short turnaround for the 49ers. Brock Purdy, tough start in this game. I think, Kittle, you probably look to start him. He's the number 1 receiver there. Maybe even the number 2 behind CMC with how efficient he's been through the air. He's always open whenever they throw him the ball. CMC, you start every week, no matter the matchup. I think Kittle as well. He can kind of have a touchdown and save the day. But outside of that, Secko, Purdy, and in turn, the wide receivers, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. How do you feel about them against the Browns? I think the Browns are a top 3 defense up against the pass as well. So it's going to be a tough one over there in Cleveland.
Yeah, well, we saw it last week. Purdy struggled against the Panthers, who are okay, but yeah, they're obviously not in the same league. And there's Derek Brown can get some rush going, but he's not Myles Garrett. So I feel like Purdy's going to be on the run a bit more, which pretty much just means that it's going to be all Kittle and McCaffrey. It's also going to be 40K winds, snowing, 0 degrees. So yeah, it profiles as a blizzard game. It may not be like torrential snow, but if it's coming in sideways, it makes those games pretty hard. Brock Purdy played his college ball up north, so he's played the snow before. It's not like he's got no idea, but it's just not ideal for 49ers. So I think it's a pretty simple two start. I wouldn't want to start Purdy. He was a big pickup last week against the Browns in that weather. I'd probably just prefer to look elsewhere. There's guys you can get off the waivers who potentially are better starts this week too.
I forgot to mention the 49ers are favourites, just 5 points this one. The total is 36.5, which we don't love. For the Browns, Secko, Quinton Junkins. That's pretty much it. Actually, while we were talking, I've just picked up Shador in the Creators League, and I'm going to start him over Bryce Young this week because I think the 49ers defense is just battered. He might throw a couple of touchdowns, wouldn't surprise me. No confidence whatsoever, but why not? He's a polarizing player. And, it'd be great for the press if he has a big game and pulls up an upset win over the 49ers.
I didn't see he was available. I probably should have looked at that and got him instead of. I've got the sock himself on my bench, so that's a bit of a blow by me. But anyway, I'm not going to. I think Dylan Gabriel's back in a couple of weeks anyway, so no big one there.
It's a gross one for the Browns. It'll be a tough game to watch. That's for sure. I do not plan on watching a lot of it. Kicking off the later Monday morning slate here, the Vikings heading over to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a massive 11.5-point favorites in this game. 41-point total in Seattle. For the Seahawks, JSN, start him no matter what. I think Kenneth Walker, you can probably start him as well with how heavily they are as favorites. Sam Darnold, being a heavy favorite too, you expect him to have a not bad game. Zach Charbonnet, I think Secko is also even a little sneaky play because every chance he runs in for a touchdown, we know when they get within the 5, Ken Walker gets hooked, and it's up to Charbonnet to run in the touchdown there. But besides that, is there anyone else you're looking to start for the Seahawks in this game?
I really like the Charbonnet call purely because there's going to be plenty of opportunities down there, I feel. It's one of those games where JSN plays a quarter and a half, has his 19 fantasy points, and then takes the second half off. Probably worth shouting out that last week the Vikings were the team that let Emmanuel Wilson have a monster game. So I think Charbonnet can get a few in at the goal line against them pretty comfortably. Otherwise, Shaheed's been disappointing. They're not using him. Cup is a shell of himself. Hard to start these guys in what we think is going to be a pretty positive game script from early on. We've seen it a few times with Seattle get up by 2 or 3 scores, and they pretty much just turn Sam Darnold off. So you hope they all go to the receivers, but you never know. Jay Barner, another guy who can steal touches. So can Arroyo, and Torrey Horton. I think maybe profiling to be back as well. So just adds a bit more murkiness. It's probably JSN and the running backs, and that's probably all. Darnold is a very much a startable prospect as well. If you need him.
And for the Vikings, Secko, Max Brosmer's first start. Aaron Jones is probably the only one that I'm keen to start in this game. I mean, Justin Jefferson, I've got a start-sit decision for him this week in one of my leagues. RJ Harvey, I'm looking to start over Justin Jefferson in this one. He's up against Washington. I just can't. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to sit Justin Jefferson, but it's hard to play him as well with how bad the quarterback rotation has been. And Brosmer's first start, going to be a very tough watch. How do you feel about the Vikings outside of Aaron Jones this week?
It's one of those things. If it was a lesser defense and it wasn't on the road, you probably would feel you give the benefit of the doubt. This guy could probably could do something. All I'm thinking about is if anyone's old enough to remember, Nathan Peterman got the start for the Raiders a million years ago. I have no idea, maybe 8 years ago, and he threw 5 picks in the first half of his first ever start. That's the sort of vibes I'm feeling from Brosmer. That's where we're going to get to against this defense. So I'm worried. I would sit Jefferson. I'd start. Oh, geez, Jefferson or Zay Flowers. Ask me that one. That's a tough question. I'd start JJ over Flowers, but not many others. Addison's obviously not rosterable at this point. I don't think you can definitely get rid of him. Pick up anyone, and Hawkinson's the same. It sucks. And Mason's the same as well. And Jones is only just startable because they know they're going to mostly go through him.
Sucks with Addison too. He was having a great stretch when Carson Wentz was under center, but now he's just you can't start him whatsoever. Moving on, the Bills taking on Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, Bills are a field goal favorite, 45.5 total points. Honestly, a must win for both teams. In this one, the Steelers are tied now in that division with the Ravens, and Bills are lagging behind the Patriots. Coming off a loss, I do think the Bills get it done. For the Bills, Josh Allen, no matter what, James Cook, you start him even in a tough matchup on the road. Khalil Shakir, your start of the week. End of list for the Bills. We can move on there. Pittsburgh, Secko. Aaron Rodgers does get the start. How do you feel about DK Metcalf this week?
Probably about the same as I feel about him every week. It's a hard start. He appears to be so much better than what he is, which makes it really hard. He was drafted with some pretty decent stock, and he's not absolutely shitting the bed every week. He gives you a bit of a sniff, and he makes big plays, and he has big catches. But he's been poor at best the last couple of weeks. Saved by a touchdown last week, but only 2 catches, I think it was, for not many yards from memory. 22 yards. Oh, no, there's no touchdown. No, that was the stinker. 5 catches, 22, 549, 3 for 35, 2 for 6. He hasn't had a touchdown since week 8, that must be. And yeah, he's just, God, he's a hard watch. He's the kind of guy who can do it any week, though, which again makes it harder. Um, Probably working against him is the fact that the Bills are more of a run funnel, very exploitable on the ground, which makes me think that it's not going to be a great game for Metcalf. It's not going to be a great game for the tight ends. It's probably going to be a great game for both running backs, which is a weird thing to say and profiles strangely, but I feel like that's where it's going to be heading, especially with Rodgers back in there.
Yeah, I like to call both running backs. I think you can start them both this week. Bills have been a terrible defense against the run. Rodgers back on the center. Both those running backs are going to get plenty through the air as well. Moving on, divisional matchup. The Raiders heading to LA to take on the Chargers. Chargers are just under 10-point favorite in this game, just over a 40-point total. For the Chargers, Herbert, my start of the week, starting here with confidence in turn. Ladd McConkey, Rondé Gadsden, Kamani Vidal. If Hampton plays in this one, I wouldn't start him because I think they'll both eat into each other. Would you start Hampton if he plays this week, Secko?
Yeah, I'd start him over Kareem Hunt. I'd probably start him over Javonte. Sounds really weird. I think if he plays, he's good enough, and the Raiders are poor enough that he'll be good. He's moving well in practice. I've watched a lot of video. As I said, I've got him in a lot of places, so every bit of content I can find on him, and I'm finding it. He seems super keen to play. He wants a full workload. I think they're in a decent position to give him a good workload because they know if worst case something happens to him again, Vidal's been a decent stand-in, so they know they have backup. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I feel like they're going to want to use this guy. They want to win games. Herbert's not dominating of late. I feel like he will this game, but yeah, I'd start him, but I wouldn't be super confident. But I'm super pumped to start him in the next 3 weeks after 4 weeks.
And for the Raiders, it's Genty, it's Brock Bowers. That's it. We'll move on. Do not start Geno Smith. Moving on to prime time. Sunday night football for the States. Nice little Monday at lunchtime for us here. Broncos heading to Washington to take on the Commanders. They are 5.5-point favorites. 43.5-point total. For the Commanders, it's Marcus Mariota under center. It's probably a 3% chance that Jane Daniels plays this game, if that, at best. Terry McLaurin back under center. It's going to be tough up against that Broncos, but it looks like Pat Surtain, he's a chance at playing this week. He's been out. He's limited participant in practice, so one to monitor. If he does play, I'm not keen to play any of the Commanders receivers in this game. I think, oh God, I don't even know, Secko, if he'd play anybody for the Commanders in this game. How do you feel about that?
No, like, yeah, it's too fluky. They played Detroit a couple of weeks ago. The leading receiver was Treylon Burks. That probably says all you need to know about the state of the Commanders' passing game with Mariota at the moment. Debo's had the odd touchdown here and there. He's sort of just scraping by, not one you'd want to start. I think if Surtain is in, he takes Terry, though. Last week, before the bye, Debo had 7 for 74 and a touchdown. He's had touchdowns 3 of the last 4 games. So he's probably definitely the most startable if you had to, but it's the Denver defense. It's probably an avoid in a similar way that the Bears are against the Eagles. And the what are they called? Colts are against the Texans. Probably just want to if you can, bench them all, play some of the upside guys we've spoken about that hopefully picked up waivers the last week or two.
And for the Broncos, Secko, the Commanders, their defense is pretty banged up, so I think you can comfortably start RJ Harvey. Mentioned that early on, off the bye. Rookies off the bye, they tend to get a little bit more integrated, and J.K. Dobbins still on IR. I'd like to start him in this game. Bo Nix, you can start him as well. Commanders are a weak defense. Cortland Sutton, has not been great the last few weeks, has let you down in a lot of spots. How do you feel about him and the rest of the pass catchers for the Broncos in this game?
He was borderline. Here's my toss up for start of the week. I'm massive on Cortland this week. I think this is the Bo Nix get right game. Um, Commanders are virtually they don't get as much press as the Cowboys and the Bengals as the passing defense. They're right up there as one of the worst. Very very easy to beat. I think Nix can do it, and I feel like Sutton is due for a big one. He's had a number of down games, but he's had targets. A lot of his down games have come from more so from Nick's being a little bit off, the play calling being a little bit strange, and Troy Franklin being a little bit more a bit more in the spotlight. I feel like this after the week that's been, it's going to be there's every chance it's going to be the week for Cortland Sutton bounce back. So I'm very very big on him. If you got him, feel free to start him with a fair bit of confidence, which is hard to say after the last month or so.
Final game of week 13, Monday Night Football, Tuesday lunch here for us in Australia. The Giants heading to New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots 7.5-point favourites, 46.5-point total. And Secko, this might sound crazy. Don't mind the Giants to cover in this game. I think Will Campbell is a massive loss. And that Giants defensive line, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Cavion Thibodeau as well, might be a little too much to handle for that injury-riddled defense or offensive line there for the Patriots. Hard to say. Drake May's just been so solid, and the Giants can't really stop anything else outside of that, so we can start there. Drake May, Travion Henderson, you start them both. Stephon Diggs, I think you start him as well in this game. I probably wouldn't look at Hunter Henry, but how do you feel about this game overall, Secko? Is that you kind of like the Patriots to cover in this game, and how do you feel about them on the offensive side of the ball?
I do like them to cover, only because I've just never been a big Giants guy. But Dart being back, he can change the dynamic in terms of winning games. They don't win games, right? So don't ever think that the Giants can win this game. But the 7 points I think is your talking point there. Thing the Giants do well is get in front in the last quarter and then find a way to lose close. That can easily happen again. I just think it's one of those games where the Patriots control a bit more, slightly better defense. Theo Johnson's going to have a big one, but Wan'Dale Robinson will be held. He won't have the same impact he had last week because he's not facing me in 4 different matchups like he was last week. It's hard to call there. Tyron Tracy's been okay. He's not a stud. It's probably just really it's on Jackson Dart's arm because I don't think he's going to run as much as well. So it is very much an unknown with Dart missing 2 weeks. And I'm actually keen to watch it because I don't see a lot of either of these teams in prime time much. And I love the 2 quarterbacks I love as my 2 favorite young quarterbacks in the entire league.
It's going to be a good one to close it out. Hopefully it's closer than what we think there. That'll wrap things up for our breakdown week 13. We'll get into a couple of comments that we have. Thanks, everybody, for throwing these in and waiting until we get to them at this point. As always, if you're watching on YouTube and following along, smack that like button, hit subscribe, ring that bell. It's the freest way and it supports us greatly here at Insight NFL. We absolutely love it. And, of course, if you have a couple of wet socks on the line, you just have to at this point smack that like button here. But, Secko, let's go here from the top. Start here with Jaden. Is Jeddah's benchable? Seeing a lot of talk. He kind of covered this. I guess it really depends on the situation you have, but I think 70% of the players you probably could look to bench Jeddah's. And one that I'll throw to you that I think I'm not quite there yet, but John Mechie or Justin Jefferson this week.
It's Justin Jefferson. He's been bad. But remember, he's been bad to his standards, and that's the important thing to remember is that even his horrible games, he still is getting plenty of looks. He can still catch the ball in a variety of ways. he's just so talented. So we don't want to get too crazy. It's not bench at all costs, but there is definitely options that you could play over him. Like I'll run through a few that I'm sort of considering. Michael Wilson, 100% start over him. Jameson Williams start over him. Khalil Shakir start over him. Um, there's Colton Sutton, I'll start over him. Christian Watson's tough. Like that's sort of where I'm looking. There's clear sits we've spoken about, like Pittman, Dunze, one day or I would still start Jefferson over all those guys. And Diggs is probably another one that I'd start Diggs over Jefferson. But that's sort of where you are. You probably got 22 to 24 guys that you'd start over him, which is I never thought a fit Jefferson would be down in that range, but that's where we are. And look, who knows? Brosman might actually be competent, and he has 120 and a touchdown, and we know from there in the next 4 weeks that that he's good. He's good to go, and Jefferson can be back in that locked and loaded starter. But until then, there is guys to start ahead of him, not just bench at all cost.
Jefferson hasn't scored over 11.1 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. It's been very, very gross for him, to throw that out there. Kendall Jazz, another comment here. Do you think I should play Romeo Dobbs today or hold out and hope Brian Thomas Jr. plays Sunday? And if not, pick up wide receiver John Mechie or Kayshon Boutte from the waivers. So what do you think on this one, Secko? I think I'd hold off on Romeo Dobbs. I think I'd rather John Mechie over him. And maybe even, how do you feel about Brian Thomas Jr. versus John Mechie in that regard, or do you even like Kayshon Boutte this week?
If I was in Kendall's situation, I wouldn't start Romeo Dobbs. I'd wait it out, knowing that there's two options on the way. If there's only one, if there was only Mechie and not Boutte on the waiver wire, you're sort of exposing yourself because someone might get Mechie any time. But two gives you a bit more flexibility that you're going to get one if you need to. To be honest, I probably wouldn't start Brian Thomas over either of those guys if I was being completely honest. So I would wait on Dobbs and I would pick up one of the two. Now, if picking up one of the two means dropping Dobbs, so be it. I'd probably start Mechie over Boutte, but I'd probably do that. Pick up Mechie for Dobbs and start him over Thomas and Dobbs.
Yeah, I like that. Even if you need to drop Dobbs, Jaden Reed will probably be back next week as well to eat into his workload. Final start-sit question that we have here for the night before we close things out. From Shaquille, 4 PPR, pick 3, Breece Hall, RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker, and Marion Hampton. It's probably Hampton that we're sitting in this one, right, Secko? Purely just because it's kind of up and down. I mean, Breece Hall, my start of the week, RJ Harvey against the Commanders, and Ken Walker in a massive game where they are massive point favourites in that one. So how do you kind of feel on that one? Do you see it a little bit differently, or you're kind of on the side of sitting Hampton?
Yeah, I'm pretty. I would definitely start Breece Hall and RJ Harvey. That's clear. It's between Walker and Hampton. I'd only lean Walker because of the matchup. They've got the Vikings. He'll get a lot of chances to run on them. So, and Hampton may be in a split first week back. So, I think you err on the side of likelihood of workload and upside. And Hampton's not even a lock to be back. I don't think there's a fair chance that they hold him out one more week because they're playing the Raiders and they don't need him necessarily to win. So, obviously, wait. The good thing is none of those guys play early. Nah, they all play late. So you've got time to wait until you know whether Hampton's playing or not. So that's a good luxury to have.
Love it. Thanks heaps, everybody, for joining in. Before we close this thing out for week 13, just after we end the stream, give me 2 minutes and that post will be up on Instagram. Again, make sure you're following us at Secko_IFS, myself at Mullin_FF, and of course the Insight NFL page at Insight NFL Fantasy. We'll have a nice giveaway to go up. All you need to do is be following all 3 of our accounts, predict the top SuperCoach scorer in tomorrow's slate of games, and also their point scored in the closest winner or exact point scorer. If you can nail it on the head, we'll win a standard squeeze 4-in-1 for your efforts. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This is Insight NFL Fantasy. We'll see you all on Monday to do it all over again.
Bye.